The key was slipping in my hand. My palm was wet, though it wasn't water. I could taste iron in the air. The metal teeth bit into my skin as if it had its own hunger. The walls shook with the sound of chains tearing loose. Screams rolled through the dark. Not from one throat, but from 100. Some cried, some laughed, some prayed. All of them wanted out. I kept my eyes on him, Cardinal Marconi. He stood calm while the chamber roared. His robe was torn, stained with ash, but his face carried a smile like none of this was wrong. The cross in my grip was burning red. The fracture down its center glowed like a furnace, and the heat licked at me until my flesh blistered. I thought I could hold it. I was wrong. Blood trickled down my wrist, mixing with the rust on the key. Every breath tasted of sulfur. Every sound hammered against my skull. And still, he didn't move. "You swore before God! Is this what you call justice?" He didn't blink. He didn't look away. Justice? No. This is only order. The laughter behind the cells rose, sharp and cruel. One voice broke free of the others, clear enough to whisper my name. I knew that voice. I'd buried her in New Orleans a year ago. Now she was here. I staggered back, choking on the weight pressing down from every wall. The bells should have stopped at 3, but they kept ringing, stretching too long, bending the rules. And with every strike, the air grew heavier. I pressed my hand to the wall. It was wet, trembling. Not stone anymore. It was breathing. Marconi stepped closer. His shadow stretched across the floor, blacker than the dark itself. His smile never wavered. I realized then he'd wanted this moment. He'd brought me here not to hold the door, but to open it. I screamed. I don't even know what words left my mouth. Rage, grief, fear, they all poured out, burning my throat raw. The chamber swallowed them whole. I should have walked away. I should have stayed in the mountains. I should have let them come and find another fool. If I had known the price, if I had known what they planned to unleash, I would never have returned to Vatican soil. Never. But 1 year ago, they came for me, and I listened. I never meant to leave the church the way I did, but after New Orleans, there wasn't a way back. Not for me. Not after the girl. It was summer, hot and wet, the kind of heat that rots wood. St. Louis Cathedral looked like it always did, white stone, the cross cutting into the skyline. Inside, the air was thick. Candles lined the altar, their flames struggling against the humidity. I remember her screaming. I remember the silence after. I remember blood where it shouldn't have been. They told me it wasn't my fault. I knew better. She died under my hand. That night, I left the city, left the order, left everything. I ran into the mountains, found a shack, and let the trees close around me. It was easier to breathe when no one else could hear me. The Appalachians don't forgive. They're old, carved out by storms and time. The ridges cut against the sky, endless folds of dark green. I lived alone, chopped wood, ate what I could hunt, drank too much when I had it. I prayed less. Some nights, I didn't pray at all. I told myself God had turned his back. Truth is, I was the one who turned. The shack wasn't much. 4 walls, a roof patched with tin, a stove that groaned when I fed it. Winters bit hard, snow pressed against the door, and the nights stretched longer than I thought I could bear. I'd sit by the fire and hear the wind move through the trees like voices. Sometimes I answered them. Sometimes I swore I heard her voice again. The girl. My failure echoing through the timber. It was almost a year later when I heard the knock. A steady, deliberate knock. Not like the neighbors, I didn't have any. I opened the door and saw him. A man in black, collar white. The kind you don't mistake for anything else. "Father Clark?" I should have closed the door. I didn't. Not anymore. He smiled in a way that wasn't joy. "I'm Father Ricardo. I've been sent from Rome." He stepped into the cabin like he belonged there, boots scraping across the old boards. His eyes ran across the walls, the bottle on the table, the dust that had settled in every corner. He didn't say judgment out loud, but it hung there anyway. "The church needs you, Father. There's work only you can do. You're wasting your time. I'm finished." Ricardo shook his head. "No one is finished until God says so. You know that." I laughed, dry, bitter. God stopped talking to me a long time ago. But he didn't move. He waited. And somehow, that silence pressed harder than his words. I hated it. I hated how a part of me wanted to believe he was right. A week later, I was in Rome. The flight was long, the air stale, and every mile pulled me back towards something I didn't want. From the window, I saw clouds stretch flat like an ocean, and below them the Atlantic. I told myself I'd walk away when we landed. I didn't. Rome opened up beneath the plain like a mosaic. Yellow stone, narrow streets, domes pushing up like fists from the earth. When I stepped onto the cobblestones, the heat hit me, dry and ancient. Ricardo led and I followed. The city looked the same as when I was younger. Marble, stone, domes heavy with history. The Vatican walls rose like they were cut out of the earth itself. Pilgrims moved through the square, heads bent, voices whispering prayers I hadn't said in years. They walked me through halls I remembered, past frescoes and tapestries, saints gazing down from painted ceilings. At first it felt like coming home. Cardinals welcomed me with open arms, handshakes, measured words. I thought maybe this was a second chance. But that didn't last. Ricardo kept me close. His words were careful, but his eyes stayed sharp, always watching. In quiet moments, I asked him why me. He never answered directly. "You'll see soon enough," he said once, his voice low. "Not every task can be given to just anyone." They took me from the center of the city, away from the basilica, out past the stone walls, south toward the hills. Castel Gandolfo, the summer retreat. I'd heard of it, but never been. The air was cleaner, the lake stretched wide, fields of barley swayed under the sun. It looked harmless. At the edge of one field stood a shack. Wood gray from weather, leaning but not falling. A guard leaned on the doorway. He didn't speak. He only nodded to Ricardo and opened the door. Inside was nothing but tools, dust, and an empty chair. Until Ricardo pulled a board loose from the floor. Beneath it, a stair cut down into black. The air that rose up smelled of stone and iron, old like a tomb. We descended. The light died fast. Torches burned on the walls, throwing shadows across brick that looked Roman, older than the city above. The deeper we went, the colder it grew. At the base of the stair, Cardinal Marconi waited. His robe brushed the ground. His eyes caught the torchlight, sharp as glass. "Father Clark, welcome back." I bowed my head because it felt like the only thing I could do. "Your Eminence." He gestured down the hall. Cells lined both sides, doors heavy with steel, crosses carved deep into the stone. Behind them, I could hear breathing, scraping, a laugh that didn't belong to a man. Marconi spoke softly, like reciting liturgy. "There are rules here. You will follow them without question. The first rule: never step inside a cell, no matter what you hear. Not a scream, not a prayer. The second rule: never speak to the prisoners. Their words are poison. The third rule: if you hear your name, you must ignore it. It isn't for you. The fourth rule: when the bell tolls 3 times at midnight, you will seal every door, every time, without fail. The fifth rule: you will never ask questions. About them, about us, about why." His eyes stayed on me as he finished. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The rules weighed more than stone. I nodded. "Understood." Ricardo's gaze lingered on me. I could feel the pity in it. Or maybe it was relief that I was the one standing there, not him. I told myself it was formality, bureaucracy, the kind of ritual the church loved. But in the back of my skull, something whispered that this was different. These weren't rules written to protect them. They were written to protect me. And I knew I didn't believe them. The first night came fast. I thought exhaustion would bury me. But the cell corridors don't sleep. Stone breathes differently down there. It exhales cold air, damp with mildew, and the torches flicker like they know something I don't. I lay on the cot in the small chamber they gave me, staring at the ceiling, counting cracks. I told myself I'd be fine. Just rules, just walls, just another night. Then I heard it. A voice. Thin, fragile. It slipped through the stones as if they were paper. "Richard." I froze, the cot pressed against my spine, the blanket suddenly heavy. The voice came again, clearer. "Richard, please, help me." It was her, the girl from New Orleans. I knew that voice. I knew the break in it, the breath between syllables, the pleading. My chest collapsed in on itself. I sat up too fast. My head spun. The torch outside my door sputtered as if the air had been sucked from the corridor. "No, you're dead." The words left my mouth before I could stop them. My throat ached, dry. I knew she was gone. I'd buried her memory 100 times. But the voice didn't care about what I knew. "Richard, they hurt me. Don't leave me here." I staggered to the door, pressed my ear against the iron. The sound wasn't outside. It was inside me. It reverberated in the cavity of my skull. I slammed my palms to my ears. Didn't help. The whisper was underneath. The rules. I remembered them. The third rule. If you hear your name, you must ignore it. It isn't for you. I whispered the words to myself like a prayer. It isn't for me. It isn't for me. But my hands still shook. I lit another torch and stepped into the corridor. The light cast long shadows across the stone. I moved past the first cell, eyes locked forward. The figure inside didn't stir, but the shadow did. It bent wrong, leaning toward me when the body didn't move at all. I stopped breathing. The prisoner pressed against the bars. His face was in darkness, but the sound of fingernails dragged across iron cut sharp into the silence. Scrape. Scrape. The sound didn't come from the metal. It came from inside my head, like someone carving words directly into my thoughts. I stumbled back. Torchlight swung, throwing broken shapes across the walls. "It's stress. That's all. Just stress." I forced the words out. If I didn't, I'd start believing what I was seeing. The torch guttered. For a moment the flame dipped low, and in that breath of darkness, the shadow detached. It leaned across the floor, stretching like tar. When the flame caught again, it snapped back, like it had never moved. My heart slammed against my ribs hard enough I thought it would break free. I pressed my back to the wall. My reflection stretched across the damp stone opposite me, but it wasn't mine. The torch was in my right hand, but the reflection held it in the left. Its head tilted when mine didn't. Its mouth was open wider than it should have been. Stop. The reflection mouthed the same word, but slower, wider, until the jaw unhinged farther than bone allows. I ran. Boots hammered against the stone, every step echoing threefold, as if someone was chasing me. I didn't stop until I slammed the chamber door shut and dropped the bar across it. My chest heaved. The room spun. I sat on the cot, hands trembling. My ears rang with the scrape of nails, the hiss of whispers, the toll of bells that hadn't rung. I pressed my palms to my face and forced myself to breathe. Stress. Hallucination. That's all. But the wall behind me pulsed once, slow and deliberate like the beat of a heart, and I knew I wasn't alone. The hours dragged. I tried to lie down again, but the cot was no safer than the corridor. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, pale, wet with sweat, the last scream caught in her throat. The girl from New Orleans. I'd never told anyone her name, yet she spoke it back to me, from stone walls thousands of miles away. At some point, I must have drifted. The torchlight blurred, shadows softened. Then another sound pulled me back. A scrape. Slow, deliberate. Like claws dragging along the bars. Except the noise didn't echo from the corridor. It vibrated through the bones of my skull. I forced myself to stand. My knees buckled under the weight of dread. I opened the door and stepped out again. My torch hissed, flame thin in the damp. The corridor stretched longer than it should have. My steps echoed but returned wrong, mismatched. I reached the second cell. Something moved inside, but not with the rhythm of a body. Too smooth, too liquid. The voice came again. "You failed me, Father." I shook my head. "No, that's not you. That's not her." The laugh that followed wasn't human. It was too perfect. Every note the same as the last, like a recording looped without end. My stomach turned. A guard appeared at the end of the hall. Torchlight caught his armor. He saw me standing outside my chamber and frowned. "Father Clark, you shouldn't be out here." I gripped the torch tighter. I heard something. Someone called my name. He walked closer, face hard. "Then you already know the rule. It was her. It was real." The guard shook his head. "Ignore it. That's the only way you'll last." He didn't wait for an answer. He turned and walked away, boots echoing like a clock counting down. I stood there, torch shaking in my hand. The figure inside the cell pressed forward again, but the shadow moved in the opposite direction. I couldn't look anymore. I staggered back into my chamber and dropped the bar. Hours passed, or minutes. Time bent down there. At last, the bell tolled. Once, twice, 3 times. The sound shook the stone, vibrated through my chest. I leapt up, heart pounding, and sealed the doors with trembling hands, just like they told me. But even when the last bolt locked into place, the toll didn't stop. 4, 5, 6. Each strike heavier than the last, beating through the marrow of my bones. I sank to my knees. That's impossible. The bell roared again, so loud I thought the ceiling would crack. Dust rained down. My ears bled. My breath tore out in ragged sobs. And underneath it all, the whisper. "Richard." It wasn't coming from the cells anymore. It was right behind me. I turned, torch raised. The chamber was empty. Still, the whisper lingered, pressing against my neck like warm breath. I slammed my eyes shut. It's stress, hallucination, it's nothing. But my hands told me otherwise. They were wet. I lifted them, saw the smear of red across my palms. Blood. Fresh. And the bell tolled again. The second night didn't feel like a night at all. Time bent. The torches burned but didn't burn out. My body ached with exhaustion but never slipped into real sleep. The walls had learned how to whisper. I stopped trying to convince myself they were stone. That was when I heard him. Not a prisoner clawing or laughing, not the girl. A voice, deeper, heavier. It pressed through the iron like water through cracks. Calm. Patient. Waiting. So, you've come. I stopped in front of the cell. Shackles glowed faint on the figure's arms, links thick as my wrist. Wings curled behind him, white once, now black at the edges like paper burned. His head lifted, eyes catching the torchlight, and I forgot how to breathe. Don't look too long. They bound me for that reason. I gripped the torch tighter. You're not real. You're another trick. Then why does your heart break every time I speak? I swallowed. Heat crawled up my throat. I wanted to run, but my legs didn't move. The second rule, I can't talk to you. Yet here you are. He leaned forward, chains scraping against the stone. The sound was too clean, too sharp, like glass cracking in my skull. They told you the rules, didn't they? Not to protect them. To keep you from hearing me. My grip on the torch slipped. Sweat ran cold down my wrist. Shut up! The angel's laughter rolled against the chains, too calm, too steady. If I were silent, you'd still hear me. That's the gift they gave me. To speak where no ears can close. I shook my head hard enough to make my vision blur. You're a prisoner, that's all. Vatican holds you here because you're dangerous. Dangerous, yes. But ask yourself, dangerous to who? To mankind? Or to the men who built these cages? He pulled at the chains, and for a moment I saw light tear from the iron, a glow older than fire. The air grew hot, sulfur layered with sweetness, like rot beneath flowers. Do you know what this place is, Richard Clark? A prison. No, it is a harvest. They keep us here to bleed what power remains. They call it protection, but every prayer whispered in the basilica above feeds down into these cells, and every ounce of our strength rises back into their hands. The air thickened. My chest felt too small to hold breath. I felt my skin crawl. That's not possible. Is it less possible than a dead girl calling your name? Than your shadow breaking its own spine? You've seen it. You know. I clenched my fists. Why me? Why did they bring me here? The angel smiled. Not cruel, not warm, just endless. Because you carry failure, and failure makes you open. They told you redemption, but what they wanted was a key, a living key. I'm not your key. You already are. You walked through the gate when they asked. You let them chain your soul to this place. His words rattled me. The air thickened. My chest felt like it was closing. I shook my head, desperate. They told me this was service, a way back. They told me God. He laughed, sharp, cutting. God? God? Look around you. Do you see his light here? Or do you see stone and blood and silence? I pressed my palm to the bars. They burned. My skin blistered. I didn't move it away. If they wanted power, why keep you locked? Why not kill you? Because power must be drained slow. If they kill me, it's gone. If they bind me, it flows forever. He pulled the chain taut. Sparks lit the cell for a breath, enough to show the carvings on the walls. Sigils, Latin, but twisted. Symbols meant to sanctify, but warped into something hungrier. They've rewritten the word itself. You think you guard the damned. You guard their treasury. I staggered back. The words felt like poison sliding into my veins. My thoughts twisted. I tried to anchor myself with the rules. The rules were clear, simple. Don't talk, don't listen, don't ask. But I was already breaking every one. You're lying, he smiled again. Then ask them. Ask Marconi. See what answer he gives. I wanted to. God help me, I wanted to. But I already knew what silence I'd receive. Tell me what you are. He leaned closer. Eyes burned red for a moment, then dimmed. The torches dimmed at his words, shadows stretching like claws across the wall. Once I was a herald, a voice in the choir. My song split the veil of dawn. They called me angel. Then they called me traitor. And now, he lifted the chains until they sang against each other. Now they call me prisoner. My heart hammered. The torch shook. My breath came fast and broken. If you're an angel, why would they? Because a weapon doesn't choose its war. Men do. And your church has been at war since it learned the taste of blood. I turned away. I couldn't bear his eyes anymore. My thoughts screamed against each other. I wanted to deny it, but every stone whispered the same truth. Do you remember the girl? His voice pressed into me again. Do you remember her last breath? I clenched my fists until nails drew blood. Stop! She was not the first. She will not be the last. They let her die, Richard, because her death marked you. It marked you for this place. The truth in his words bent my spine. I couldn't answer. My silence was already confession. You want to know how I fell? I'll tell you. There was a war. Not the one written in hymns, not the stories painted on ceilings. A war of choice. Some of us saw what men would do with the gifts we carried. We refused. And for that, they called us rebels. We fought. Fire against fire, song against song. The sky burned until even the stars went blind. His voice thickened, layered with echoes that weren't his alone. I saw flashes, wings clashing, rivers of light breaking, a scream stretched across eternity. I fell because I would not bend. I landed in your world, wounded, but alive. And the church found me. They didn't destroy me. They bound me. They whispered words from the book until they twisted into chains. They built this place to keep me, and others, so they could drink from us like wells. My knees buckled. I pressed my forehead to the floor, desperate to block his voice. My body trembled. The images scorched behind my eyes. I saw the truth of it, their harvest, their treasury, their endless hunger. He leaned closer, his whisper the weight of a world. When the bells toll beyond 3, it won't be the gate that opens. It'll be you. And once you open, they'll never close you again. I stumbled back to my chamber. My body shook. My mind split between rage and disbelief. I dropped to my knees and pressed my forehead to the floor. I whispered the only words I could. Deliver me from evil. But the walls whispered back. Evil wears the cloth of men. The bells started at midnight. 1, 2, 3. I waited for silence, but silence never came. 4, 5, 6. The tolling crashed through the stone like thunder underwater. My ears burst with pain. Blood slipped down my neck, warm and metallic. I clutched my head and screamed, but the sound drowned beneath the bell's roar. 7, 8, 9. The bells wouldn't stop. Each strike split my skull wider. I dropped to my knees. My crucifix seared red in my palm. The iron floor shook like a drum, as if the bells themselves beat from below the earth. The torches blew out. Darkness swallowed the corridor whole. Chains rattled. Not one, all of them. The cells shook as if the walls themselves had come alive. A light ripped through the bars, red, blue, white, too bright to name. Flesh tore against iron, screams turned into laughter, laughter into something worse. The shackles burst. One cell at a time, locks tore free as if invisible hands ripped them apart. The stone trembled beneath my feet. I staggered against the wall, my torch useless, my prayers lost. Then I heard his voice, Cardinal Marconi, calm, steady, cutting through the chaos like it belonged to him. "Richard, look, witness what order truly is." I saw him at the corridor's end, robes untouched by dust, face lit by the red glow bleeding from broken seals. His eyes burned with triumph. "You son of a bitch! You used me as the fucking key?" He didn't flinch. He didn't even raise his voice. "Not used, Richard. Chosen. There's a difference." The walls cracked open. Figures poured out, shapes bent and twisted, wings in chains, horns blazing, eyes burning with fire too ancient to name. They surged against one another, against the guards who rushed in too late. Steel rang once, then silence. The soldiers didn't have time to scream. They were torn apart like paper. One was lifted high by a creature half-shadow, its body writhing with mouths that opened and shut in prayer. Another soldier swung his sword, but the blade rusted in his grip, crumbling before it struck. The prisoner swallowed him whole. Blood sprayed across the stones. The air reeked of sulfur and burning flesh. Screams folded over each other, high and low, until it sounded less like voices and more like a choir gone mad. I stumbled forward, my hands shaking, the bells still hammering inside my skull. God damn it! This isn't God's work, this is hell's! Marconi only smiled. This is salvation, a new order. The world will bow to what it cannot deny. But the freed prisoners turned toward him. Their voices rose together, not human, not unified, yet striking as one. "You think we kneel? You think we're yours?" A wave of force tore through the corridor. The marble split. Sigils burned black. Marconi staggered for the first time, his confidence bending under the storm he'd unleashed. The shackled angel stepped forward, chains falling away like dust. His wings spread wide, feathers torn but blazing with unnatural fire. "You wanted an army, Marconi, but you've never commanded angels, or demons. You've only fed them. And now they'll feed on you." Marconi raised his hand. A crucifix glowed in his palm, brighter than sunlight. For a moment, the prisoners faltered, but then one stepped forward, a figure with eyes sewn shut, yet seeing everything. He laughed. "Your light is stolen. Your faith is theft." With a flick of his wrist, the glow shattered like glass. Marconi roared, "Kneel before me! I hold the chains of heaven and hell!" His voice shook the stone, but the creatures only howled louder, mocking him with their freedom. The guards fell screaming into darkness that wasn't there before. The stench of sulfur rose thick as smoke. Every torch reignited in crimson flame. Shadows no longer followed the bodies. They led them, pulling men apart from their own reflections. Marconi shouted above the roar. "Richard, stand! You are chosen to hold the balance. Join me and control them." I could barely breathe. My ribs ached. The floor cracked under my knees. I shouted back, voice breaking. "Control? You've lost it already." The shackled angel's voice cut the chamber. He never wanted control, only power. And now power consumes itself. One prisoner stretched into a mass of wings, each feather a blade. Another became nothing but smoke, filling men's lungs until they clawed their throats open. A third dragged chains that screamed, each link glowing with faces of the damned. The sound clawed into my mind, tearing at thought itself. The floor split wider. Black water surged up, hissing steam where it touched the air. I saw faces in the water, hundreds, mouths open in eternal drowning. Their screams rose, each distinct, soldiers, priests, children, all trapped in the current. Marconi tried to summon more light, chanting words in Latin, but the syllables bled out, twisted, warped. The prisoners laughed, mimicking his prayers in reverse until the sound itself became a curse. His crucifix cracked in his hand. He screamed, but even his scream bent backward, echoing as laughter. The shackled angel raised his wings, voice booming. "Your order ends here, Cardinal. The chains you forged are broken, and so is your command." A blast of fire and wind slammed through the hall. Marconi was thrown back, crashing against the far wall. Blood streaked his face, but his smile didn't fade. "You think you've won. Richard belongs to me. He opened the gate, he cannot close it." The angel's gaze turned on me. His voice carried weight like mountains falling. "You stand between them, priest. Between theft and ruin. Choose." The dungeon itself began to collapse. Stones rained down. Arches split. Dust filled my throat. I tried to run, but the floor tilted, pulling me toward the black water. Hands reached up from the flood, dozens, clawing my legs, pulling me down. Each hand belonged to someone I had failed. Their mouths opened in unison, calling my name. "Richard! Richard!" I fought against them, but they dragged me deeper. The water rose to my chest, to my throat. My lungs filled with screams. I gasped, but the air was gone. The crucifix burned hotter, my vision blurred. "I've got no way back." The prisoners surged, claws and wings and teeth. The noise was beyond screaming. It was creation in reverse, the sound of something unmaking itself. The bells thundered again, endless, merciless. My body convulsed, my vision burned white, and still, somewhere beneath it all, I heard the whisper, the same whisper that had haunted me from New Orleans. "Richard." I don't know how. The dungeon collapsed behind me. The bells fell silent only when the roof gave way and buried the corridors. The air burned in my lungs. I crawled until I found night again. When I turned back, all that stood of Vatican's secret prison was smoke. The earth itself seemed to deny its existence. I should have died with them, but I didn't. And that may be worse. I once believed I had lost my faith back in New Orleans when the girl died under my hands. I thought I buried it again in the mountains, where silence weighed heavier than prayer. But faith doesn't vanish. It mutates, it festers, it grows teeth. What I carry now isn't prayer. It's a shadow of prayer, twisting every word I try to speak. When I kneel in any church, the walls don't bless me. They breathe. My words don't rise, they sink, dragging down into stone and ash. Every psalm sounds like a curse in my own throat. I keep a notebook. The pages shake when I write, as if the words themselves want to crawl away. Some lines are mine, messy and broken. But others are too perfect, too neat, written in a hand that isn't mine. At times the ink sinks downward, letters pulled into the paper like they're being swallowed. I never remember writing those lines, yet they speak in scripture twisted inside out. Sleep offers no escape. When I close my eyes, I see black water rising, faces trapped beneath its surface. Soldiers, priests, strangers, all gasping prayers that rot into laughter. Their mouths open and close in rhythm, not to God, but to something beneath him. I wake choking, blood in my throat, the mark in my palm burning like a brand fresh from the forge. Mirrors betray me. My reflection holds a torch in the wrong hand, smiles when I don't. Sometimes it moves its lips silently, as if finishing the prayer I could never complete. Each time I blink, it lingers one breath longer, until I'm the one who looks away first. Faith is supposed to anchor you. Mine has become an echo chamber,
Repeating back words I don't mean, reshaping them until they taste of ash.
What I once believed would save me now speaks with another voice. And when I pray, I'm no longer sure who is listening. If you've listened this far, the echo is already near you. The scar in my hand burns hotter the longer I speak, as if the words themselves are chains. The rules you thought were mine are yours now. They've changed with me. They no longer sound like commandments, they sound like warnings carved in wrought. Never step into the cell, even when it wears the face of your memory. Never answer the voice, even when it speaks like your own prayer. When your name is called, pretend it isn't yours, because the one speaking already owns it. And when the bells toll, you will know. 3 is mercy. 4 is hunger. 5 is faith turned against you. If you ever hear more than 3, don't wait for the prayer to finish. Don't kneel. Don't cross yourself. Run. And don't look down.